The dinner was supposed to be easy. 6 of us around a long wooden table. The kind of evening where conversation moves naturally. From work stories to travel plans to the small, harmless complaints people share about married life. Glasses clinked. Someone kept refilling the bread basket. And laughter passed around the table like it always did when our group met. My husband sat beside me, quiet but relaxed, listening more than talking. That was always his style. He let others take the center of the conversation. At some point, the topic shifted to habits partners found annoying. Someone joked about their wife leaving lights on everywhere. Another friend described how his husband could never find anything in the kitchen. The table laughed. Without thinking much about it, I added my own contribution. "Well," I said, smiling, "at least your partners finish things. Mine starts projects like he's collecting hobbies. Half our garage is filled with things he swore he'd master." It wasn't even a new joke. I'd said something similar before. The garage really did have unfinished projects, tools, a half-built shelf, a bicycle frame he once planned to restore. The table responded exactly the way I expected. A burst of laughter. Someone nodded knowingly. Another person said, "That sounds familiar?" I glanced at my husband, expecting him to smile the way he usually did when these little stories came up. Instead, he took a sip of water and waited for the laughter to fade. He didn't rush. That pause alone was enough to shift the room slightly. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, almost thoughtful. "It's interesting," he said quietly. "How often I hear about the garage at dinners like this." The table grew still. No one interrupted him. "I guess it must be a good story," he continued. "It comes up a lot when we're with people." I felt a small knot tighten in my chest. His tone wasn't angry. That would have been easier to handle. Instead, it was steady, reflective, almost curious. He set the glass down gently. "But it's funny," he added, "because when we're home, the garage isn't what we usually talk about." No one laughed this time. The shift in the air was immediate, though subtle. People looked down at their plates or reached for their drinks. He didn't say anything else. The conversation moved on after a few seconds. But it moved carefully, like someone walking across a frozen lake. I smiled and tried to keep participating. But my mind kept circling back to what he'd said. It hadn't been a savage reply the way the moment might have. Sounded to someone watching from outside. He hadn't insulted me. He had simply changed the perspective, and somehow that made the joke feel heavier. For the rest of the evening, I noticed things I usually missed. The way he listened quietly when others talked. The way he rarely interrupted anyone. The small patience in his posture. When our friends eventually left, the house returned to its usual quiet. Dishes stacked in the sink. The faint smell of roasted vegetables lingering in the kitchen. He started rinsing plates like he always did after gatherings. I stood by the counter for a moment, unsure how to start the conversation. "You didn't have to do that," I said finally. He glanced over. "Do what?" "At dinner." He turned the water off and dried his hands slowly. "I didn't think I did anything," he said. His calmness made it harder to speak. "It was just a joke," I said. "I know," he replied. There was no accusation in his voice, just acknowledgement. That's why I didn't say much. The silence between us stretched for a moment. Then he added something that stayed with me. "It's just interesting hearing about myself through stories I don't recognize." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He leaned back against the counter, thinking. "Most people at that table probably think I spend my weekends starting projects and abandoning them," he said. "But that's not really what our life looks like." I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out right away, because he was correct. The story about the garage had become one of those easy social jokes, the kind that gets a quick laugh without much effort. I had repeated it often enough that it had turned into a version of him people expected to hear about. "Why didn't you say something before?" I asked. He shrugged slightly. "It didn't seem important." Another quiet pause. "But tonight it did?" I asked. He thought about that for a second. No, he said slowly. Tonight I just realized something. What? That jokes are usually true for someone in the room. The words weren't harsh, but they landed with a clarity I hadn't expected. For the first time, I began replaying all the other times I had told that story. The casual laughter, the easy approval from friends who recognized the pattern. And I wondered how many times he had simply sat there and listened. I'm sorry, I said quietly. He nodded once, accepting the words without turning them into a bigger moment. Neither of us spoke for a while after that. The house felt different, though not broken, just more honest. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I realized that the joke at dinner hadn't revealed anything new about him. It had revealed something about me. Specifically, how easy it can be to turn someone you love into a punchline without noticing the cost.